You joined us for Rain of Blood, and together we made it rain bigger and better than we could have ever imagined. So now, join us for a second blazing inferno of knowledge and exploration. You're listening to Rain of Fire, the scorching sequel event to Rain of Blood, where we're going to delve into the world of fire play education and safety as we prepare for the upcoming Rain of Fire event. Join your host, Miss Kitten, Radically Dark, and Ember Solaris as we ignite your curiosity and stoke the flames of passion with discussions, interviews, and authentic insights from around the globe. Together, we're three flames united in one mission to make quality kink education more accessible and open pathways to conversation and connection about edgeplay topics around the world. But before we dive into these sizzling topics, a content warning. Rain of Fire discusses mature themes, explicit content, and practices related to BDSM and fire play. So listener discretion is advised, and this is an adult-only podcast. Other topics may include mental health, trauma, consent, and more. So please be sure you're in a good spot to engage in these topics before continuing to listen. So grab your fire gear, stoke the flames of curiosity, and let's embark on this crackling journey together. Welcome to Rain of Fire.
Hey, amazing fire starters. I'm back and I'm going to chat today more about cigars. I'm loving this journey and I have a very beautiful human in my dungeon today from Montana. This is my first human that I've met virtually. I haven't met one in real life either, but this is the first human I've met virtually from Montana, so it's even more exciting. Welcome, CopperSunshine, to my podcast and to Rain of Fire and to the world of teaching kittens about cigars.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
I know a bit about your kink and your experience with cigars, but maybe you can tell the listeners a little bit about how you went from the Muggle world into the deep dark world of kink, and then how you found cigars and Cigar Service.
Oh, absolutely. The Muggle world. That's a perfect way of explaining it. I was extremely vanilla, as in like not artificial flavored vanilla, but vanilla bean vanilla for quite some time. I'm a bit of a late bloomer, and when I was a divorced single mom raising teenagers, my daughter said, "Geez, you need to get a life, Mom." So I joined a dating app and I met someone on this dating app. In fact, it was Tinder. I had no idea Tinder was a hookup site. I thought it was something like eHarmony, a relationship finding site. I don't know. But 5 years later, I have a pillow on my bed that says, "All because two people swiped right," which is pretty funny. I don't remember what the occasion was, but it was a gift from him that cracks me up. So I met my now Dom, BikerDom. We dated for about 6 months before he really introduced me to any sort of kink. He had just begun his kink journey as well, but he knew that building my trust had to be his first priority. So to do that, I guess he put me on the back of his Harley and took me on some of the most dangerous roads in our state. But he started attending coffees and munches on his own first, and then invited me to attend. So he was the catalyst into this kink world. And he was going to those coffees and things, and the first one that I went to, I was just smitten. I thought, oh, wow, I didn't know these people existed. This is fantastic. I love them all. And it was only about a month later that COVID hit and everything shut down. So I was, at the time, very disappointed that, COVID had hit and I wasn't going to get to go to any dungeon parties or any more coffees or any more munches to learn about these things. But looking back on it, it was fantastic because then we had a chance to explore things completely on our own and realize, what I really liked, what he liked. And then when things opened back up, we went to our local dungeon and just started going to various dungeons and venues across our state. And we've kind of been running wild ever since. We just are, I guess, when we get into things, we really get into things.
I love that. I love hearing about how you embraced it, and it's joy in your voice. You're making me smile. It's so beautiful to hear your story. Thank you for sharing with me. I've seen your beautiful gag, which I'm going to ask you about just now, but you definitely, one of your kinks is cigars and cigar service. So can you tell me a little bit more about that and how you connected the very traditional world of smoking cigars with the very kinky world of BDSM?
Of course. And I will refer to BikerDom throughout this because that's kind of, as I said, he's the catalyst to all of these wonderful things that I'm enjoying. And I remember when we first started going to our local dungeon, the matriarch of that dungeon smoked cigars, and people would be, between scenes, we'd be out in the yard around the fire, and BikerDom would ask me to, run down to the local town pump or the local gas station where cigars are sold, which is probably really surprising to you. The local gas station and pick up
That's crazy. That's so crazy.
Cigar. And so that's what I do. I'd get him a cheap cigar that he could just, be part of the social aspect of it. But he didn't love them. It was part of, okay, whatever. And I remember we were at another venue and someone broke out their sticks and offered him one. And of course he felt like, I need to do this. And so he takes the cigar, and later on the ride home, he was like, oh my goodness, it was awful. Well, he didn't say, oh my goodness. He said it kind of tasted like a dog turd or something. And he hated it. But he said, he saw the $40 sticker on it and was like, I really need to smoke this cigar. And so we talked then and there about, cigars, yuck. Even though we just, that's not his thing. He didn't want to do it, whatever, right? So we were at a party. Well, it was actually between a social engagement after a party. It was just sitting around a fire, and everybody's visiting, and some people that we knew a little bit, but not too much, started talking about Cigar Service, and there were a few people that asked, show us what it's about. And I don't know, it was interesting. It switched for me. When BikerDom had first told me about Cigar Service, he said, there are people who are human ashtrays. And I was appalled. I could just not even fathom that. I have many, many good friends who are into humiliation and degradation, and that's what I thought when he first told me about it. I thought that I don't like those things. And for me to serve as an ashtray, could there be anything that would make me feel worse? But as soon as that couple broke out their cigars and started explaining Cigar Service and just kind of the ritual that they go through, I was absolutely smitten. I tasted my first ash that evening and absolutely loved it, but I'll get to that a little bit later. So yes, they explained some things to us, and we were both hooked. His first cigar that he was offered that night was Fat Bottom Betty by Deadwood Cigars in I want to say South Dakota. I don't know if that's right. But anyway, the Fat Bottom Betty is what he first smoked. And now he loves cigars and has tried lots of different cigars. And we have incorporated it into our everyday life, really.
I love it. I love the idea. I'm not great with service. The idea of serving somebody very rarely strikes me as exciting. But this is the one kink where I think it actually could be super sexy, and I think it could actually be super fun. And I think it could also be really intimate. So I'm even prepared to, like, as much as fun as I am having picking the cigar and smoking the cigar, I'm quite keen to try the other side as well and experience it. And I think what I'm enjoying so much about the kink is you can calibrate it to any way you want. Like, it can be super degrading, or it could be super dirty, or it could be super sexy, or it could be super accurate and pristine service. It just depends what you want and what your fantasy is. And I think that appeals to me a huge amount in this kink.
I completely agree. And for me, I feel like it's something that I have been able to learn about and know the basics of it, so that, because not a lot of people know. Not a lot of people know that there are different ways to cut it and how that cut affects the smoke or the draw specifically. But the service part of it is what's huge for me. And I totally agree that it can be very, very intimate, which for us as a couple personally, that's exactly what it is. But I also enjoy being the person, or a person who knows kind of what I'm doing and can offer different methods of lighting and of cutting and of preparing someone's cigar, so that when we're in a social setting, it just makes me so happy to have him say, would you like her to prepare your cigar? And I will happily do that for the people who are in our social setting. I thoroughly enjoy it. And of course, in our community, there are submissives who provide service for their doms, and that's if your submissive is the one to service your cigar, obviously that's their protocol. That's fine. That's not necessarily how we work. I want to be the one to light his cigar and prepare his cigar, and we usually make time for that. But if I'm involved in a scene somewhere else, then certainly someone else can do it, or he does it himself or something. But there is that, just that connection where I'm the one who wants to light his cigar, and I understand that about other people too. If there's, if someone doesn't want me to light their cigar, that's great. But if they do, I'm more than happy to offer my services.
I love that. I also like the way you've picked a guy who's still independent enough, or well trained enough. I don't know which one fits this groove, but that he'll do it himself if the need hits. I love that for you. I think that's brilliant. And it's nice to hear that. It's nice to hear that men can still be capable. So yeah, he just got an extra star against his name from me, because I like to know that men can still do these things, even though women can do them to a spectacular level. It's nice to know that guys can still be independent. I think it's very cute, and listening to you talk about it, I can feel the intimacy in your relationship, and I can also feel how much joy you get out of doing it. It's really lovely, and it's nice to be able to do something special for somebody that they appreciate, and makes the experience that they're about to commit to better, and it just makes the memories really, really special. So that's great. So maybe you can take me through what happens when in a cigar service. What does that look like? And let's talk about an average one. It doesn't have to be a fancy one, but how does that begin, and what does it look like, and what do you do?
Well, typically, I'll just I'll talk about the most frequent that happens. We will be between our meal that we will have, say, at our local dungeon, and the start of introductions for a party, and everybody will be out around a fire, and unless of course it's freezing cold in Montana, in which case we'll be in the smoke shed. They specifically have a smoke shed, and so we will be around the fire, and BikerDom will sit down, and I will have my kit. I have a Cigar Service kit that he equipped for me very well as a Christmas gift, and it has all of the things that I need. It has all of the cutters. I have a guillotine cutter, which is a straight cutter. I have a V cutter. I have actually my V cutter and my punch are together in a very beautiful copper color, I might add. So I have all of those tools. I have a drill. So those are all in one section of my kit. And then I have the lighting tools. No Bic lighters. I have a copper torch, a copper colored torch, I have matches. They're a little bit longer matches because a short match, at least for me, it takes a little bit longer for the cigar to light with a match. And I'm a masochist, but I don't really want to lose the tips of my fingers holding a match. And then my favorite way is cedar sticks. They're just like a little strip of cedar that's probably, 9 inches long, and you can use that as well. So when we sit down around the fire, he will ask if anybody has a cigar that they would like for me to prepare for them, and if they do, I'll scurry over with my kit and take the cellophane wrapper off. I'm very careful not to touch the cigar itself anywhere, because the oils off of your fingers can apparently affect the taste of the cigar and the way that it smokes. So I kind of shimmy it up out of interesting, right?
So interesting. She looks at her dirty little kitten fingers, and next time is going to be more careful.
Yeah. So there's the like the band or the ring toward the head, the part that you smoke. That band, I've done some research, and apparently that was so that your fingers didn't get black from smoking. So touching the band, so I'll kind of shimmy the cigar up out of the cellophane wrapper and then hold on to the band so that my fingers aren't touching the cigar. And then I will ask whoever is wanting to smoke the cigar, I'll ask them, first of all, what cut they want. And typically it's someone who is experienced and they already know exactly what kind of cut they want, because the cut affects how it smokes, how easily it is to draw, or, not inhale, but pull the smoke into just your mouth. So I'll ask them what cut they want, and I'll get out that tool. I'll make that little cut. I'll then ask them, I'll back up for just a second. There is the option of asking someone if they want their cigar to be moistened or not to be moistened. And it's funny because I was talking to a vanilla person not long ago, and I mentioned this to him, and he looked at me like I was crazy. But to moisten it, it keeps the wrapper down. And so you can moisten the cap, or the head, the cap, which is on the part of the cigar that you will put in your mouth. The cap is the part that you cut off or that you punch or whatever. And before doing that, you can moisten it just by licking it a little bit. And when I talked about that to this totally vanilla person, he thought I was absolutely crazy. And my dom doesn't like that, but many people do like it to be moistened a little bit so that wrapper stays
I'm gonna
down.
stop you there. I've had like a deep dive into the moisten thing because this is not the first time it's come up, and I really love this because there are many ways that you could moisten it. Apparently you can use a good scotch. You can moisten it with your sub's own juices. You can moisten it with your lips.
Yes.
You can moisten it like this is like, I think this is what makes this whole cigar thing so special, is you can really personalize every process, and this is one process that can be super personalized. And this is where I quite like from a service thing, because you could do a really sexy blowjob type cigar thing to moisten the cigar. So there are a whole lot of ways that you could make this really raunchy, or I mean, you could be very proper, or you could be super slutty, which I think makes the whole thing just so cool. It just, you can really individualize it, which I just loved. So I like the moisten thing. I also want to say, this is the only time I've ever heard the word moist and not felt slightly ill, because it's not a word that I normally enjoy. True? Yeah, right. It's not a word I normally enjoy.
Can't describe anything else, but if it describes what you're doing to your cigar, absolutely. Yeah. Exactly. I will say, just as a word of caution, that moistening, if someone is moistening it with their juices and inserting it, and which is apparently known as marinating, and that's it's wonderful. However, you just have to be careful, because the membranes in the vagina absorb nicotine very quickly. So that's something to be cautious about. Don't, if you're going to marinate it, don't marinate it for a very long time, because it or at least build up to that, I guess. Yeah.
Not overnight.
Yes, exactly.
Not overnight, girls.
Exactly.
Paying careful attention. Great tip. I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah, it's a really neat part of it, I think. And as you said, it's a way to really make it very personal and very intimate. And I offer to moisten it with my lips. And thank you for saying that about the moistening it with the scotch or something like that. That's something I honestly hadn't even considered, which is interesting, because I keep in the bottom of my cigar kit, I keep a flask of good rye whiskey along with 2 shot glasses. So when I offer to light someone's cigar, and it's difficult, of course, if we're around a campfire, I can't offer every single person a shot of whiskey, but that is something that I have in my kit, is this flask of good rye whiskey, that if they would like to have a shot of whiskey, they certainly can. But that's an interesting thought. I'll have to start offering to moisten it that way.
Apparently you can use good coffee, you can use chocolate, there are a whole lot of different avenues you can go. Because my first question, I don't drink anymore. So I said to the woman at the cigar shop, well, if I don't drink malt, what else? She says, no, cigars and coffee are a match made in heaven. And if you use a very good espresso, you can even moisten it with the espresso if you want to add a little bit of flavor. So I don't know if the real cigar heroes are all turning over in their grave now and thinking, oh my God, the South African is slashing our tradition. But yeah, she seemed. I didn't mention to her that you could marinate it. We didn't go there. She was very vanilla at the cigar shop, so I didn't. In my head, I wanted to, but I didn't go there with her. But she did give me some great top tips for moistening things, and I was like,
That's fantastic. So let's see. Oh, so after I've offered to marinate it, excuse me, then again, I think I mentioned that I'll ask which cut they want, and they'll generally know which cut. So I will cut the cap off of their cigar, or do a punch, which doesn't actually cut the cap off. It just kind of makes a little hole there. And then I'll ask if they want it toasted, which basically just means very slightly toasting the edges of the wrapper at the foot of the cigar. And the foot is the part that you light, and that's the part that's burning. So I'll ask if they want it to be toasted, and the reason for toasting is to keep it to make an even burn, so that you don't get a run and, part of the cigar is burning up one side and the other side isn't burning. So just toasting it ever so slightly on that outer ring is helpful. And some people want it to be toasted. If it's a smaller cigar, fewer rings, which would mean that it would have a smaller diameter, people generally don't want it to be toasted. But if it's a larger size, then generally they'll want it to be toasted. And then the next thing I'll do is ask how they would like their cigar lit. My favorite way to light a cigar is with the cedar. Apparently it's called a still, not a still, a spill. And again, it's about 9 inches long. A lot of people break them in half. I'm not quite good enough to break it in half yet. Again, I'm always worried about it burning my fingers eventually. And it's not so much, I'll be honest, it's not so much that I care about it burning my fingers as my panic of dropping it into, getting afraid that it's starting to get close to my fingers, and I panic and I drop it in the person's lap. Like that's a bigger fear of mine than actually getting my fingers burned myself. If my fingers are burned, I'll live. But the fear of it getting close and me, panicking for some reason and dropping it on someone, that's my biggest fear. So I keep mine long, but I have a torch that is engraved with my name that I will light if they prefer a torch, or a match. On my cigar kit, I have they're little stickers of, I don't even know what to call the stuff, but like on the side of a match box that has the striking plate, basically, whatever that stuff is made of. I feel kind of silly not knowing what it's called, but I have several of those stuck around my cigar kit, so I can just strike a match on my cigar kit in order to light the cedar. And apparently the cedar it sounds kind of silly to light a match and then light the cedar, but apparently the cedar helps with the flavor, the butane, for people that are very particular about it.
You're talking about the cedar, and I can imagine the smell of the cedar being really authentic and natural compared to the smell of butane or the smell of sulfur from the match. So I'm very keen to go and get some cedar sticks and try that. It sounds beautiful, and it sounds like a lovely process. I'm going to keep my cedar sticks long because it's going to be my lap that I end up dropping them in. So I'm loving the top tips that you're giving us, because this kitten doesn't need to burn anything more. I've done enough of that over the last month with Rain of Fire prep. But I love that. I think that's so beautiful, and I love that the kit is personalized, and that it's everything has a meaning that you're using, and everything has the story that's in your kit. I think that's beautiful. I just wanted to tell the listeners that I went in and wanted to get a guillotine. And then when she put the one on the table, I could probably get two tires for my BMW for the same price as the guillotine that she wanted to sell me. So I just want to say, this is stuff that you collect over time, and it's stuff that is really special. And it's not your everyday. It's not every day that you get to be able to handle tools like this, because they're costly and they are not so easy to find. I bought a cheap guillotine that would just last for 2 or 3 cuts, which was still relatively expensive, compared to a box of matches. And And but I felt like in my future there would be a beautiful guillotine. So now there's going to be one with my name on it after listening to your story.
It's funny because when my kit was first put together, I had all of BikerDom's older equipment. For example, we were at a convention, and some folks had driven down with our tools and thus his torch, and he forgot to put it back in the car to drive home with them, and we were flying, and he was like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can have my torch with me. So he was afraid that his torch was going to be taken from him when we got on the plane, as we went through TSA. So right then and there, he ordered himself another torch. And then when we got home and he hadn't gotten stopped by TSA and he got to keep his torch, then I got the old one. I got the old one and he got the new one. So that's kind of how it started out. But now my kit is very well equipped. It has backups just in case, something goes wrong with one of my pieces. But I have my favorite pieces of tools, and they're very special to me. They're all copper in color, and they're perfect. So once they get smoking, one of the best parts of the whole thing is the ash. And so once people have had their cigars lit, then I finally go over to BikerDom and I will light his cigar. And then we all just kind of sit around the fire and visit, usually. And I'll offer to be an ashtray. We have several people actually at our local dungeon that have gotten into this as well. So that's the next step in all of this.
I know, Copper, I know that you've got a beautiful headpiece that you use for to Human Ashtray Service, and that the headpiece was made for you, and that this is the second one that you've got. Do you want to tell me a little bit about the journey of finding the headpiece and how you've ended up with the beautiful contraption that you've got now?
Oh, absolutely. I'm very excited to talk about that. So in talking about lighting cigars around that fire, one of the things that once everybody has their cigar lit, of course, where are they going to put the ash? It just seems a tragedy to have it go on the ground or into the fire or wherever. So when we first started out, as I had mentioned earlier, one of the first things that I did was try tasting the ash. So people can ash directly onto your tongue. They can ash into your hands. They can ash onto your tits, whatever you want to offer up. And so BikerDom is locally famous for all of the crazy things that he finds on the internet, all of the different kink toys and just interesting things that he finds. So when we were just getting into cigars, I remember going down into his dungeon, and here he has this gag, displayed. And first of all, as you can probably tell, I never shut up. I talk and I talk and I talk and I talk. So a gag is typically not something that I'm really interested in. And I don't wear one a lot. I rarely wear them during play, during impact or whatever. That's just not my thing. If I'm told to be quiet, I'm quiet. I don't need a gag. But so I look at it. Okay, what is going on here? And so he shows me the things that he has purchased with it. It was a kit that included, so it was a headpiece that it was just a normal gag that would strap around my around my head, and it has like a rubber or silicone ball in it. So it's a ball gag, but then within that gag, it had like a little square hole that you could put different attachments onto. So the kit that he got included, let's see, a coat hook. So if someone wanted to be human furniture, they could be a coat rack. It also included a little like brush, so that if you wanted someone to sweep things up with their gag, they could do that. It included a coaster for holding a drink, and most importantly, it included an ashtray. So that was the best part. Have I lost you?
No, I'm listening. I'm listening. I am in my head right now. In my head right now, I'm imagining what good use I could put a little broom to, or a drink holder, or you've got my mistress brain going in circles and doing flick flacks with all the ideas of what I could do with somebody with a broom in a gag.
Well, and apparently there is even I don't know if it's a separate kit or if there are just separate attachments. I'll have to ask him, but there are even like a toilet bowl cleaner, and none of those were up my alley. But there were, I'm sure there are lots of other people that are interested in those things. I was not one of them. I just looked at the ashtray and was smitten. So we tried it several times on our own, and then we went to a rather large con, and they had a cigar social at one of the hotels that attendees at the large convention were invited to. And I wore my corset and kneeled down, corset dress, because it was a vanilla, it was a vanilla hotel, but it was all, it was all kink people, but still there couldn't be nudity, whatever. So I kneeled down on my little knee pad, and I sat with my ashtray, and I was the public ashtray that people would go around, and it was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating to me. For the first time in my life, I enjoyed being quiet and just listening to everything that was going on around me. And there were lots of people that were hesitant to use me as an ashtray. They weren't sure if it or the ashtray or I were available for public use. So everybody was very respectful, and they would ask my dom if it was okay, and they'd ash in the ashtray, and just the eye contact of, looking at them and seeing that I was being of service to these people that I didn't even know, but it was interesting because the novelty of it, I don't know that I'm sure people maybe had seen it or heard of it, but not many people had seen that. And it was not degrading or humiliating in the least. I felt totally respected, and just, it was wonderful.
Oh, I love that so much. And again, this intimacy in connecting with complete strangers in service. But there's a lot of intimacy in the idea of smoking a cigar, and I'm really loving that. I think that I think it's a really beautiful part of the whole experience for me.
Absolutely. So his original gag, I'll get into mine now, that it was very difficult because the ashtray itself is metal, and the bar that holds it into, I don't really know what to call it, but the attachment that holds it into the ball gag itself is also metal. So it's very heavy. So I sat there for probably an hour, and it was I always said it was interesting because my cheeks would start to hurt and cramp from holding it kind of between my teeth to be able to hold it up. Like if I had the ball gag itself in my mouth, that was fine. But to be able to hold it up so it wasn't leaning down, I had to have very good posture and be sitting up straight or kneeling up straight, I guess, and lifting my chin. But I had to hold that gag with my teeth. And my cheeks would hurt from holding it, but also because I was just smiling the whole time. So, yeah, that was another part of it, that it just, my cheeks would just hurt. So, I wore that, I don't know, for quite some time, and would do different events, go to never anything as big as that one. And I'm very sad because we haven't been able to do that at another large con, because everything we've been to has been in, a vanilla setting where vanilla people can see it, and group organizers have just not been super comfortable with that being right out there in public, because if little children are running to the pool, that they haven't consented to seeing someone wearing a ball gag ashtray. So at some point we're hoping we're at a large con that has, it's a hotel takeover or something, and I can service lots of people but provide that service for lots of people, but BikerDom was wanting me to have something that was a little bit more comfortable and something that I could wear for longer periods. So he started working with a leather craftsman, and they designed a custom-made ashtray gag. And it was interesting because the crafter sent us a template that we had to cut out of paper and see if that would fit and take pictures of so that he could see it. And he made it, and it was a little bit too big. So there was quite a bit of mailing this item back and forth, but he put a metal piece that the ball gag part itself goes through, so that there's a little bit more stability to it, and I don't have to hold it with my teeth quite as much. There's still some effort there. But now there's also a piece that comes up over my nose so that it can connect to the strap in the back. And it's far more comfortable. I could wear it for a couple of hours before. Again, I still have the problem of my cheeks getting sore because I'm smiling the whole time. But now it's not quite as much from me holding it with my teeth as it is with me, having cheek cramps from smiling.
I love the cheek cramps from smiling. I'm experiencing my own cheek cramps from smiling listening to this podcast today, and I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it so freaking much. And I am really excited because you're going to come and give us a class for on demand for Rain of Fire, and show us how to do some of these super cool things. And please bring the gag and show me the gag. I have to see it.
Absolutely. I can't wait to show off my gag. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, and we're so excited to have you with us, and I'm so grateful for your time and to be able to connect, and how authentic and open you've been about your experience. It's really been a very pleasant afternoon for me, and my cheeks are hurting, but I think you can relate to that.
Absolutely.
Copper, you're just incredible, and regards to BikerDom as well. And thank you to you both for sharing this little part of your world. It's so special to be invited in and to have the chat. I really appreciate your time, and I'm so excited for the class. I can't wait to share this with my friends, because I think this is something that's really beautiful.
It is wonderful. And thank you so much for having me. I enjoy sharing the experience as well, because I think there are lots of people who will get to enjoy cigars once they know a little more about it. So thank you.
Oh, we've loved chatting. Can't wait for your class. To all my listeners, if you don't have your Rain of Fire ticket, what are you guys doing with your lives? You need to get connected. Hook up with us. Our on-demand classes are coming in under 2 weeks. We're so excited to start to share some of our amazing presenters with you and all of our 101 stuff. We have consent coming up this week. So if you have a ticket, come and join our consent class. You can catch it again on the replay for on-demand as well. And from my dungeon in very rainy, wet Cape Town, lots of love and kitten kisses.